U.S. Representative Anna Paulina Luna is calling on NASA to share unreleased photos of the Three-Eye Atlas comet.
Something unusual happened on Halloween night 2025. While the world celebrated, Washington, D.C. was locked in quiet panic. In the shadow of the Capitol, NASA briefed select members of Congress on the Three-Eye Atlas interstellar object that had just made its closest approach to Mars. But instead of releasing its findings, NASA sealed them. Within hours, America's government was on high alert. Secret meetings, withheld images, and rising tension pushed the White House, NASA, and Congress into one of the most mysterious space standoffs in U.S. history. The congressional demand that started the high alert. The alert began with one letter. On October 31st, 2025, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida sent an urgent request to NASA's acting administrator, Sean Duffy. Her demand was clear: release every image and every piece of scientific data related to Three-Eye Atlas. She accused NASA of withholding information from both the public and elected officials. The letter marked the first public acknowledgement that something serious was unfolding behind closed doors. Inside Washington, the tone shifted instantly. Luna's letter wasn't speculation. It was a call for transparency backed by suspicion. NASA's silence had gone on for weeks since the object's close pass near Mars. Every day that passed without data only deepened the mystery. For security officials, the timing made it worse. October 31st wasn't just any date. It was the same night reports surfaced that foreign observatories had detected unusual light emissions from Three-Eye Atlas. If true, it meant that other nations might already be analyzing what NASA had kept hidden. Congress demanded answers, but NASA's hesitation made the situation look like something far bigger than a routine delay. Across multiple agencies, the alert level rose. The object that once seemed like a harmless cosmic visitor was now a matter of government urgency. The hidden images that sparked the secret action. While Washington scrambled to manage the growing concern, the real tension centered on a set of high-resolution photographs that no one outside NASA had seen. These were not ordinary telescope shots. They came from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's high-rise camera, one of the most advanced imaging systems in existence. Captured between October 2nd and 3rd, 2025, these images recorded Three-Eye Atlas as it passed dangerously close to Mars. High-rise could capture details sharper than even the Hubble Space Telescope, nearly 3 times as clear. That meant these pictures could reveal not just the shape of Three-Eye Atlas, but also its surface composition, activity, and possibly whether it behaved like a natural comet or something else. But the photos never appeared in NASA's databases. They weren't discussed in press briefing, and for weeks, even top planetary scientists couldn't access them. When word leaked that the images existed but weren't being shared, accusations of a cover-up spread quickly. Researchers began noticing discrepancies in NASA's official timeline. Data sets that were usually released within 48 hours of capture were still missing more than 3 weeks later. The silence was deafening. Avi Loeb, the Harvard astrophysicist known for his controversial theories about interstellar objects, published a blog post titled "Fuzzy Images of Three-Eye Atlas." In it, he revealed that high-rise data had indeed been collected and hinted that NASA's delay might not be about calibration or quality control, but about what those images contain: China's release and the race that forced Washington's secret action. While Washington argued behind closed doors about transparency, Beijing acted first. On October 2nd, 2025, just days after Congresswoman Luna's letter made headlines, China's National Space Administration quietly uploaded a series of color-corrected images of Three-Eye Atlas taken near Mars. Within hours, those images were circulating on social media, scientific forums, and international news outlets. They were stunning. The photos showed Three-Eye Atlas glowing in a strange bluish hue, surrounded by faint, symmetrical light bands. Every frame looked crisp and deliberate, proof that China's cameras, possibly on its Tianwen-2 probe or ground-based systems, had caught something spectacular. The contrast between China's openness and NASA's silence was immediate and embarrassing. In Washington, the mood changed from concern to panic. Members of Congress demanded to know why China had managed to release its data while the United States, supposedly the leader in planetary exploration, not. Behind the scenes, NASA officials scrambled to explain. Their public line was simple. The government shutdown had paused non-essential operations, including the release of raw high-rise data, but no one in the room seemed to buy it anymore. Meanwhile, American scientists who viewed the Chinese images noticed something unusual. The halo surrounding 3I Atlas wasn't behaving like a standard coma of gas and dust. It had faint streaks of light radiating outward at regular intervals, forming almost perfect rings. Some speculated it was a processing artifact. Others weren't so sure. The shutdown excuse that no one believed. When NASA finally broke its silence, the explanation only made things worse. In an official statement, the agency blamed the ongoing federal government shutdown for the delay in releasing 3I Atlas data. According to the statement, non-essential operations, including scientific data processing and public release, had been temporarily suspended. It sounded logical on paper, but to Washington insiders, it was far too convenient. By that point, the high-rise images had been locked away for over 3 weeks, long enough for public suspicion to turn into outrage. Congresswoman Luna publicly rejected NASA's reasoning, calling the delay an unacceptable lack of transparency in a matter of international significance. Her message was simple. If China could analyze and publish its Mars images during the same period, why couldn't the world's most advanced space agency do the same? Behind closed doors, multiple congressional aides confirmed that internal NASA emails contradicted their official statement. The data processing teams responsible for the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter had in fact continued their operations through the shutdown under mission-critical classification. This meant the images were already processed and catalogued, but someone, somewhere, had chosen to withhold them. In emergency meetings, senior NASA officials assured Congress that the delay was purely procedural. Yet, intelligence briefings to select lawmakers painted a more complicated picture. According to classified memos, several government contractors had reported unusual spectral readings from 3I Atlas, captured just before the high-rise data was sealed. Those readings allegedly indicated high concentrations of reflective metals, specifically nickel and alloys rarely found in comets. NASA's response behind closed doors. When NASA finally addressed Congress in a closed-door session, the mood in the room was tense. The space agency's representatives arrived with folders marked restricted and laptops sealed under security protocol, an uncommon sight for a scientific briefing. Acting Administrator Sean Duffy opened with a calm, rehearsed tone, insisting that NASA was following proper procedure. But what followed left lawmakers uneasy. NASA confirmed that the high-rise images of 3I Atlas had indeed been captured during its close pass to Mars. However, Duffy stated that image quality issues and data inconsistencies were preventing public release. He emphasized that calibration tests were ongoing and that early frames had sensor anomaly. To the few in attendance familiar with orbital imaging, that explanation didn't add up. HiRISE was one of the most reliable instruments in planetary science, boasting crystal-clear precision for over a decade. Then came the revelation that changed the tone of the entire meeting. Under questioning, one of NASA's imaging specialists admitted that the high-rise photos contained unusual optical artifacts. These weren't pixel errors or technical flaws. They were patterns of light that repeated at exact intervals. The phenomenon appeared in multiple frames, from different angles, and across various wavelengths. It wasn't a software glitch. Something near Mars was reflecting light in a structured way. Outside the hearing, reports began circulating that the Department of Defense had quietly requested access to the same high-rise files. That detail, later confirmed by a Senate aide, hinted that 3I Atlas was no longer just a NASA concern. It had entered the realm of national security. The secret meetings inside Washington. In the days following NASA's closed-door testimony, Washington's atmosphere shifted from quiet tension to outright containment. What had started as a scientific mystery was now being handled like a classified emergency. By early October 2025, senior officials from NASA, the Pentagon, the Department of Energy, and the House Science Committee were all summoned to a series of off-record meetings held inside a secure facility in the Eisenhower Executive Office building right next to the White House. The answer, at least behind closed doors, was unsettling. NASA scientists reportedly presented a summary of spectral data from the HiRISE and MAVEN missions. The findings showed highly unusual reflectivity signatures, consistent with alloys rarely found in natural bodies. One briefing slide, which was later leaked to investigative reporters, included a phrase that sent shockwaves through the room. Possible engineered composition. Within 48 hours, senior members of both parties began receiving classified summaries of the 3I Atlas situation. Each document emphasized unverified but non-random emission patterns and advised against public speculation until further verification from allied observatories. The implication was clear. NASA wasn't just dealing with a comet, it was dealing with something that might not be natural. Meanwhile, the Pentagon's interest grew deeper. Intelligence analysts from the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, and U.S. Space Command requested direct access to NASA's data archives, citing possible correlations with directed energy emissions. Though no evidence of hostile intent was found, the coordination between military and civilian agencies intensified overnight. The president's science advisor was briefed privately, and according to one insider, the meeting left him visibly shaken. The following day, the administration quietly approved temporary funding reallocation to NASA under an executive order labeled Scientific Emergency Contingency. It allowed the agency to conduct off-budget research into 3I Atlas under restricted oversight, essentially a secret project, the intelligence leak that exposed everything. For weeks, Washington maintained a united front of silence. Press inquiries were redirected, congressional questions were deflected, and NASA's website stayed frozen with outdated updates about Mars weather and lunar soil samples. Then, late one night, that wall of secrecy cracked. An anonymous insider later believed to be a contractor within the U.S. Geological Survey's Planetary Imaging Division leaked a fragment of a classified briefing to an independent science journalist. The file contained metadata and low-resolution thumbnails of what appeared to be the unreleased HiRISE images of 3I Atlas. Within hours, those images began circulating across encrypted forums and X, formerly Twitter. NASA moved quickly to discredit the leak, calling the images fabricated composites, but experts around the world noticed something impossible to fake. The file headers matched HiRISE's encryption format, something only NASA's internal servers could produce. That was the first real sign that the photos were authentic. Within 24 hours, the leak reached major news outlets. The story exploded across the media. 3I Atlas images leak online, NASA cover-up confirmed. The public outrage was immediate. Hashtags like #AtlasFiles and #NASAHIDETHETRUTH trended globally. Independent analysts began breaking down the leaked images, revealing structural details in the light distribution, triangular shapes, consistent edges, even reflections resembling metallic surfaces. Then came the part that shook the intelligence community. Alongside the images, the leaker attached a short excerpt from a restricted interagency memo. The line that caught everyone's attention read, "Preliminary analysis suggests patterned emission inconsistent with natural outgassing behavior." China's move and the global panic. As the US government struggled to contain the leaks, China seized the opportunity. On October 6, 2025, the China National Space Administration, CNSA, released its own high-resolution images of 3I Atlas, captured by the Tianwen-2 orbiter during its observation campaign near Mars. Within minutes, those images spread across the globe, uncensored, unfiltered, and utterly shocking. The photos showed 3I Atlas in unprecedented clarity, a luminous object with intricate structured patterns along its surface. It wasn't just glowing, it was pulsing in synchronized waves of blue and white light. Even the most skeptical scientists couldn't deny what they were seeing. Unlike NASA, which hid behind bureaucratic silence, China's release came with a carefully worded statement. Preliminary imaging confirms structured reflection patterns inconsistent with typical cometary behavior. That single phrase, structured reflection patterns, was enough to ignite global chaos. News networks went into overdrive. Headlines blared across every major outlet. China confirms unnatural structure on 3I Atlas. Online forums exploded with theories, from alien technology to secret probes, while governments scrambled to control the narrative. Inside Washington, the reaction was immediate and furious. Lawmakers accused NASA of being outplayed in a cosmic information war. Members of the House Science Committee reportedly demanded an emergency briefing, accusing the agency of losing the narrative to foreign powers. It wasn't just about space anymore, it was about control, credibility, and global perception. Meanwhile, panic began spreading online. Videos claiming to analyze the Chinese footage in slow motion revealed geometric edges and rhythmic pulses resembling a signal. Hashtags like #AtlasSignal and #BlueLightObject went viral overnight. The Chinese Academy of Sciences released a follow-up statement claiming their instruments detected faint radio emissions synchronized with the object's light pulses. The signal repeated at precise interval, creating speculation that it was more than just reflected sunlight. If true, it would mean 3I Atlas was generating energy or transmitting data, something no natural comet could do. The public backlash and NASA's emergency briefing. By mid-October 2025, the situation had spiraled far beyond what Washington could control. What began as whispers of secrecy had turned into an outright public revolt. People demanded answers, and NASA, once seen as the world's most trusted scientific institution, now being accused of deceit. Outside NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C., protesters gathered, carrying signs that read, "Release the Atlas files, and we fund the truth." The movement was no longer limited to conspiracy theorists. Scientists, engineers, and even former NASA employees joined the calls for transparency. Universities began releasing open letters urging the agency to restore public confidence by declassifying all data related to 3I Atlas. Under this pressure, NASA finally agreed to an emergency press conference. It was held on October 16th, broadcast live across the world. The room was packed with journalists, Congress members, and representatives from the European Space Agency and the Pentagon. At the podium stood NASA's acting administrator, Sean Duffy, his expression grave. Duffy began by acknowledging that 3I Atlas had presented unique observational challenges and confirmed that multiple instruments, including the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and the James Webb Space Telescope, had captured data still under analysis. When pressed about the Chinese images showing structured light emissions, he paused before delivering a line that only deepened suspicion. "We are currently verifying the integrity of the external data." That single phrase, verifying the integrity, sent social media into meltdown. Within minutes, analysts and journalists accused NASA of dodging the truth yet again. Then came the real shock. A reporter from Reuters asked whether 3I Atlas posed any potential threat to Earth. Duffy's answer was evasive, but telling. "There are no indications at this time that the object's trajectory presents danger to our planet," he said, emphasizing the words "at this time." It was the hesitation, the uncertainty that caught everyone's attention. In the days that followed, internal memos leaked from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center revealed that orbital models were being continuously revised. Tiny deviations in 3I Atlas's path, measured in fractions of millimeters per second squared, were slowly accumulating. The same kind of accelerations that once puzzled scientists studying Oumuamua were now appearing again, but this time stronger. Independent analysts ran simulations, and a few trajectories showed an unsettling possibility. If the current acceleration trend continued, 3I Atlas could pass much closer to Earth than originally projected within the range of the Moon's orbit by early 2026. Washington scrambled to manage the fallout. The White House Science Office issued a carefully worded statement affirming that 3I Atlas remains under continuous observation and poses no credible threat, but few believed it. Meanwhile, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb publicly broke ranks, accusing NASA of strategic silence. In interviews, he claimed that the agency's refusal to release the HiRISE and Webb data amounted to censorship. He stated bluntly, "If China saw geometric structures and NASA refuses to deny it, the world has the right to know what they're hiding." A classified briefing that changed everything. By late October 2025, the situation surrounding 3I Atlas had crossed a line that no one in Washington could walk back. The uproar from the public, the mounting pressure from Congress, and the undeniable data pouring in from global observatories all forced the US government into an unprecedented step: classified, multi-agency emergency briefing inside the Capitol. It took place behind closed doors, under the highest level of security. Only select members of Congress, the Pentagon, the CIA, and NASA's top scientists were allowed in. What they saw inside that darkened briefing room would never be fully disclosed, but pieces of it would eventually leak. The presentation began with visual projections from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's HiRISE camera. The first slides showed what everyone expected: a bright interstellar comet trailing gas and dust. But then, the images sharpened. The coma surrounding 3I Atlas wasn't random vapor. It was structured, layered, and geometric. In certain frames, 3 repeating arcs of reflected light curved around the nucleus like rings, glowing faintly blue in infrared. NASA officials claimed these were optical artifacts, but independent analysts from the Department of Defense disagreed. Their infrared data matched the light emissions perfectly. Each pulse followed a pattern spaced at exact time intervals of 19.7 seconds. No natural comet had ever displayed such precision. That discovery changed the entire tone of the meeting. If the emissions were real and deliberate, 3I Atlas wasn't just a visitor, it was active. Avi Loeb's name came up repeatedly. Lawmakers referenced his public claims that the object might be artificial and accused NASA of silencing him. One internal memo read aloud in the briefing confirmed that Loeb had requested direct access to the HiRISE data weeks earlier and was denied due to ongoing classification. When the lights came back on, the faces around the table said everything. Congress had seen enough to realize that NASA's silence wasn't about confusion, it was about containment. The agency was sitting on evidence that defied every known law of celestial motion, and it had chosen secrecy over transparency. After the meeting, multiple attendees reported that an emergency order had been issued to increase observation coverage of 3I Atlas using both ground-based telescopes and military satellites. Funding was quietly redirected from unrelated programs into a new task force, codenamed Project Harbinger. Its stated mission: continuous monitoring of anomalous celestial bodies with potential non-natural behavior.